Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope everyone is doing all right. I've been going through a video this morning that has been tripping me out, and I was trying to figure out how to name the video, but I'm naming the video Diane Feinstein is a dick to kids, begging her to support the Green New Deal, because that's effectively what it is. People were saying that the longer video, or that the smaller video was edited heavily, and that it was done in a way to make it Diane Feinstein look bad. So I watched the entirety of the video. You can watch the all of it. I think it's like 12 minutes. I don't see how it's much better, if I'm being honest. In a nutshell, a bunch of kids go to Diane Feinstein's office. They're from the Sunrise Movement. They have placards. That kid looked like she's taking a bong hit. And they're essentially begging her to sign on to a Green New Deal. I have another video where Ocasio-Cortez responds to Diane Feinstein here. But that's basically what it boils down to. Now, during the course of this, Diane Feinstein essentially makes every excuse in the world on why she's not going to sign it. But what it boils down to is, I don't support this at all. And at the end of the day, you kids are bugging me. And I have my own resolution that's going to slow the car down by 5 miles an hour. So we only hit the wall at 95 miles per hour as opposed to 100 miles per hour. Shouldn't you be happy with what I'm doing? At one point, she tells him, I've been doing this for 30 years. Which should tell you something. If you've been doing this for 30 years and the outcome of your work is to have these kids showing up at your office, then maybe you didn't do something right. If you've been doing this for 30 years, the scientists come out and say we have 12 years left to avert the disaster, a catastrophe from the standpoint of mankind. Earth will be here. The catch is, how much harder would our lives be because of it? Irreparable damage within the context of 12 years. If that is true, and you've been working on this problem for 30 years, then you have been doing something wrong. You've been doing something wrong. Let's take a look at the video. I'm going to show clips from various segments of this. You make up your own mind. I would say this, though. Like any other protesters, be it Yellow Vesters or Occupy Wall Street, I largely suppose that these kids, will, all things being equal, prefer to be playing Xbox, eating cookies or cake or ice cream, maybe sitting in even a classroom somewhere talking to their friends, maybe playing hooky from school if they're on the hard edge of society in this case. The last thing they want to be is talking to a dinosaur who's explaining to them all the reasons why this world is going to hell in a handbasket, and she is unwilling or incapable of doing anything real to avert it. I would wager that those kids would not want to be there. They're here for reasons, and their reasons aren't necessarily insane. Let's take a look at the video. There's not much to this, but it was short. And let me say one last thing. I always find this conversation to be odd. The people who explain your world to you and who gives you this analysis of the world, who looks at the data, who does the research, who digs into these issues, and the majority, the overwhelming majority, a consensus, has said that the path that we are on is completely unsustainable for life on this planet, at least human life on this planet. They've been clear and unequivocal about this. Their reports have gotten more hair on fire-ish. I don't know if that's a word, but you get my point. As time has gone on, as they've seen an acceleration in the warming trend, and essentially things have gotten worse. And as things have gotten worse, these typical reserved scientists who, the introverts with glasses, who don't necessarily like to overstate things, come out and give a statement that sounds like an overstatement. It sounds like they're flipping out, or it sounds like they're panicking. It sounds like they're hysterical, but they're not. They're explaining to you how bad things are and how bad things can get if we continue on the current course. Take those scientists out for the moment. Take Donald Trump. Donald Trump, in his report, came out, I think it was like 7 degrees Fahrenheit within the context of 2100, the year 2100. Do you know what that means? I mean, it's a bizarre argument to me, or a bizarre conversation to say there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet, And a person with a somber look says, yeah, but we can't afford to do anything about it. Money is not real. It's a concept of sorts. We take certain agreements, and in those agreements, we create a certain reality around these bills, these dollars per se. But you would think that if life itself was under threat, meaning large amounts of life, meaning our habitable space, our environment on this particular planet, if that is in threat, it looks like all the powers that we have at our disposal would be marshaled to deal with that threat. The Republican Party just says it doesn't exist. I think that sucks. I think that is extraordinarily dangerous. But that's the position that they take. Now, I would say they take that position for either religious reasons or for economic reasons, meaning, people putting money in their pockets. But whatever. The Democratic Party, though, has this odd position of it exists, but we're not going to do anything real about it. Yes, we can see the asteroid. We accept that the asteroid exists. We accept what the scientists are saying, that it is ballistic, hurling at some ridiculous fantastic speed towards this planet, and it's going to give this planet a black eye. We accept all of that. But then you have the kind of ridiculous premise of, but we're not going to do anything real about it. That is somewhat problematic. Meaning, when these kids are here begging Diane Feinstein to do something about it, to say, look, support the Green New Deal. I understand it is way over the moon. They add too much stuff into it, meaning they're talking about a federal jobs guarantee within the context of a Green New Deal. If this is environmental legislation, because there's so much in it as a lefty wish list, it comes across as if this is being used as somewhat of a Trojan horse to get all of the policy items accomplished under the guise of doing something about climate change. Fair enough. But by the same token, it's so open-ended, meaning it's so it's not specific. You can, the person who's essentially running the show is to some degree going to set the contours of what the Green New Deal is. It just sets certain policy things that it wants to try to accomplish. It does not hurt Diane Feinstein one iota to sign on to this. And the question becomes, if not this, with all of its flaws, then what? I understand it's over the top. I understand it's not necessarily going to pass. I understand it is even going to be changed in order to be passed. But that doesn't necessarily stop you and the others from supporting an overarching, bold objective and trying to create a sustainable economy that's not taking us off a cliff. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be a start. Let's take a look at Feinstein, what I would say be a dick to kids. And Streamlabs. Let me check my display settings. Give me 1 second. There we are. I don't know why it does that sometimes, but it does. All right. So let's start here. Let's start with this one. We just start at the beginning with her walking into the building.
Hello. Hello. Hi, everybody. Hi. Oh, tell me where you're from.
Well, we're from all over the Bay.
Okay. All right. And tell me what you're doing here.
We are trying to ask you to vote yes on the Green New Deal. Please.
Okay. I'll tell you what. We have our own Green New Deal piece of legislation. Why don't you call back, see if they can fax one out, make a copy for each person.
Well, we're trying to promote the Green New Deal.
Well, there are reasons why I can't, because there's no way to pay for it.
Yes, there is.
That's
We have
the big
tons of
reason.
money going to the military. A lot of it is going to the military.
Well,
Did you hear that kid? That kid has been prepped. that kid is right. She says there's no way to pay for it. Somebody says, yes, there is. The United States government, whatever you may want to believe, makes dollars. There is no debt that is issued in dollars that the United States government cannot pay. Understand why? Because the United States creates dollars. I say that to say this, and don't take my word for it. There's a interview, or there's a congressional hearing with Alan Greenspan where I think it was Paul Ryan asked him about the debt and all this other stuff, and he kind of makes this point that any debt issued in dollars the United States can pay because the United States is the issuer of dollars. I guess my point is, from just a flat fact standpoint, of course that's not true. Also, this issue of the military budget, we spend nearly $1 trillion a year on the military budget. That is an obscene amount of money to spend on a budget. We can cut that military budget in half and it'd still be twice as much as our next competitor. I mean, so let's be very clear. We can pay for it if we set our priorities to pay for it. Also, there's a secondary thing, that the money that we invest in stuff like this comes back to us. Like, it's not that the United States throws us and it goes into, oblivion. The money that we put into items like the Green New Deal creates a certain economic stimulus. That is dollars, or taxpayer dollars, that are coming back to the United States government, meaning the money that the government put out to support resources and projects comes back to us. It doesn't go out and just vanish. But let's let her keep going, though. She's pushing this idea. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. All right. And I love the fact that the kid pushed back. The kid has been prepped. Let's keep going.
I understand that. The United States government does a lot of things. Well, I understand that.
We have tons of money going to the military. A lot of it is going to the military.
Well, I understand that. The United States government does a lot of things with the money, and they're important things. And you just can't go in and say, okay, we're going to take hundreds of millions from here and hundreds of millions from there. It just doesn't work that way.
You can do that. They do it to social programs all the time. If you remember, Trump in his budget was trying to cut, by, if I'm not mistaken, billions of dollars, like Medicare, Social Security. Also, that can't be true, right? I mean, the United States draws down its military usually after wars, meaning we pay a certain amount of money, or we spend a certain amount of money on the military, and then after the war, we draw down because there's no reason to spend that much money on the military in that way again, in this kind of permanent war zone, or this kind of permanent war state. What she's saying is kind of false on its face. Clearly, you can cut the budget, otherwise the budget would just stay what it is in perpetuity, which is nonsense. The budget changes. There's money that's taken out. Sometimes there's more money put in. It depends on the needs of that particular state. Also, again, the military budget is massively bloated. And fact of the matter is, we don't need to be in all of these conflicts around the world. We don't need to be policemen of the world. And if we weren't policemen of the world, maybe we can have the military drawdown, where we're not paying $700 billion to kill and maim. The war, the military conflict that's brewing between the United States and China, or the United States and Russia, this arms race that's being created, this arms race in space with this idea of Space Force. These things cost, but these are things that we're doing to propagate that cost. So understand, what she's saying is wrong. You can take things out of a budget because they take things out of a budget all the time. And yes, while there are certain important things that we do around the world, there's also this issue of priorities, and we, as a nation, can set our own priorities. If the nation decides that there's an existential threat from the standpoint of climate change, and that it is going to cost us blood and treasure, then we should do something about it. If we decide that the wars that we're propagating around the world and the fires that we're setting around the world is less important than dealing with the issue of climate change, then yes, you can cut the military budget to deal with matters on a global scale. I'm just saying, she just doesn't support it. All of these things are excuses. Excuses aren't right.
But of course our
But you can have, I don't agree with what that resolution says. That's part of it. And we have done our, can you get a copy of the resolution?
Yeah,
Senator, we need a plan that...
And let me just finish. I will give you a copy of what we do support. And you can take a look at it, and if you've got a problem with it, you can let me know. But I think it has a much better chance of passing than what this is, because there is no way to pay for what it gets done, so nothing will happen. So you be the judge.
That's nonsense on its face. I mean, it has to be nonsense on its face. The United States has had a New Deal before, where the United States spent a ton of money in order to put millions of people to work. The government being the last, the borrower of last resort, but also the job the employer of last resort. You know what I mean? It's like, clearly the United States can splurge when it wants to splurge. I mean, we spent, what, $7 trillion destroying Iraq and essentially just setting fire to the various countries in the Middle East. What does $7 trillion look like put to something to the good as opposed to something as ill-conceived as the Iraq War? The idea that we can't afford it, it's nonsense. We can't afford it. She just doesn't want to. There's a difference in those things.
You take a look at it. We're going to get your copy.
But we have come to a point where our Earth is dying, literally, and it is going to be a pricey and ambitious plan that is needed to deal with the magnitude of that issue. And so we're here asking you to vote yes on the resolution for the Green New Deal, because that is the only
That resolution will not pass the Senate.
Nothing is going to pass right now because Donald Trump is in office. The point of it is not necessarily for it to pass. The point of it is to set an overarching goal for the party to support and for the public to rally and get behind. It's like a moonshot. We're going to the goddamn moon. And the public looks at this and says, oh my God, we're going to the moon. Did you hear that we're going to the moon? Did you see that that particular job that that particular guy got was in reference to us putting resources in us going to the moon? Yeah, I get it. It's expensive. You don't particularly like it. It's ambitious. I even get that part. The idea that it won't necessarily pass the Senate. Even your bill, nothing that you guys put out is going to pass the Senate. The fact of the matter is, anything that you do on this front, the Republicans are going to go against it. So let's be clear. If you're going to fail in one,
and you can take that back to whoever sent you here.
Why do you think
tell them?
because
it.
Wow, she said, and you can take that back to whoever sent you here. A little surly.
You can take that back to whoever sent you here.
Why do you
and
think
tell them? Because it doesn't have a single Republican vote. And the Republicans control the United States Senate.
She's also assuming that somebody sent them there. Diane Feinstein may not be around in 20 years. They will be. And in 20 years, they may not even be 30 yet. Some of them may not even be 30 yet. This is pressing to them because they're going to have to live in the world that you spent your 30 years not doing anything to save. There's more. In fact, I'm going to put a link to all of the videos so you can see it for yourself. There's just parts of this that I want to show.
Something passed that puts us on the right foot and we're able to deal with the problem that's happening instead of something that won't get passed.
But why does that stop you from voting yes? Because even if they vote, you can still vote yes and it won't pass and we can draft a new plan.
Well, I may do that. We'll see. I don't know.
Please vote
but
yes.
it's not a good resolution.
Can we?
You know,
It represents what we need right now. So there may be
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not going to get turned around in 10 years.
the
What we can do
Senator, if
is
this
put
doesn't get turned around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these consequences.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people and all
You know
for the
what's
people.
interesting about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. And she's like, I don't respond to that. It's like threats. They're not threatening you. They're making an impassioned plea to get across to you that your world is falling apart. There's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. And they're articulating the fact that there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. And they're explaining to you, scientists said we have 12 years to get this straight. And she's like, yeah, we're not going to get this straight in 10 years. And I'm not going to respond to you guys telling me that it's my way or the highway. I don't think they said it was my way or the highway. In fact, the Green New Deal has all sorts of space and latitude in it to kind of craft it in all sorts of ways. Their point here is, even if other people aren't going to vote for it, what does it have to do with you? And you saying that it's a bad resolution, fair enough, but it's setting a benchmark of accomplishment, of things to accomplish. John F. Kennedy couldn't go to the moon when he first said they were going to go to the moon. It took years for them to get to the technological development point where they could pull it off. They're asking you to start off with a basis of intent. This is what we intend to do. This is what we want to try to accomplish. That's all they're asking you to do. She fundamentally disagrees. And now she's just browbeating the kids. Let me pull back and so you can see that part. And I'm going to leave it at that because the one is going a bit long.
The thing about this group is I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that. I've gotten elected. I just ran. I was elected by almost 1 million vote plurality. And I know what I'm doing. So, you know, maybe people should listen a little bit. And
Hold on.
this is what
You've been doing this. I mean, is that really the argument you want to make? I've been doing this for 30 years. And if the works and the fruits of your labor has been successful, why are those kids in your office bitching at you to do something and support a resolution of an overarching achievement to do something about climate change? Why? Why? The very fact that these little faces are bugging the shit out of you is some indication that you failed. If you've been working on this for 30 years and these kids are in your office browbeating you to try to support a Green New Deal, then that means that what you've been doing over the past 30 years on this particular topic has failed. Utterly, completely, incomprehensibly failed. Complete dinosaur. These kids are going to be around in the 20 years. They're asking you to put your name to something that sets an agenda. And sets an agenda to strive for. Not that you're going to hit it in 10 years, not that it's going to be done overnight, but that it sets an overarching agenda to strive for and to shoot for. That's what they're asking. They're going to be the ones that are going to be adversely affected by your 30 years of failure and by the inability to get anything done on this issue. With all of the flaws associated with the Green New Deal, at the very least, it's an attempt at something. It's this kind of grand, big, overarching attempt at something. If what you're proposing is that we slow the car down to 90 miles an hour before running into the wall as opposed to hitting it at 100 or 110, I would say that that is inadequate to deal with the problem that is facing us. I'll put this link at the bottom so you guys can see the entire video for yourself. Diane Feinstein was being a dick to these kids. Don't get me wrong, she did listen to them, so don't, you know, she stayed there and talked to them for 12 minutes, but she was definitely being a dick to these kids. C-Card, I unsubscribed from the Duran show yesterday, proved to be too disingenuous to remain subscribed. There is no law that says these kids can't be armed next time. What? There's no law that says the kids can't be armed. What? But Feinstein sure is receptive to her fucking donors when they tell her that it's their way or no money. That bitch responds really well to that. Oh, Rob, tell me how you really feel. Like our master legislator, Senate Pelosi, lost 1,000 seats in a very yeah. If they forget that point, they lost 1,300 seats all throughout the United States. But they know what they're doing. They totally know what they're doing. At one point, the kids kind of make the point to him, yeah, Rob, I saw that. I'm going to do a video on that. At one point, the kids are like, your base needs to be energized. Like, don't you need to get people fired up and get into the electoral process? And what you guys have been doing have not necessarily been doing that, and people support the Green New Deal. And she's like, and even that, like she's like, look, I think it's a horrible piece of legislation or a horrible resolution. There's no chance of passing. I don't support it, etc., etc. And for the entire 12 minutes, she's explaining to them why she doesn't support it, why she knows what she's doing, how she got elected by, I think she said, like over 1 million votes. Somebody said that they were proud of her when she got elected, and they put her in that office because they wanted her to do good things. And the Green New Deal was one of those things. And Feinstein, well, maybe you should run for Senate. She's like, the kid's like, maybe I'm going to do that. She says, yeah, maybe you should. You know better than I do. I mean, wow. Like, wow. I'm going to end this because I have other videos that I want to do. But fail for Diane Feinstein. That's an utter fail. Wagging your finger at these kids who are begging you to do something for climate is a bad, bad look. That is a horrible look. Just saying. Diane Feinstein, your next Harry Potter villain. Bob TV. What's happening, Bob? Bob TV has his own channel, guys. Bob is fucking awesome. I was talking to somebody the other day. Was it Fault Lines? I think it was Garland Nixon. And Garland was... No, I think it was AJ. I think AJ. It was something on Twitter. And he was like, I like that Bob TV. Have you checked that guy out? I was like, yeah, I've checked Bob out. Bob's awesome. California is not a competitive state ruled by corrupt Democrats. Yes, it is. Anthony Reyes. Geska. Yeah, because adults have done a great job convincing corrupt politicians to do the right thing. Feinstein looked like a wicked witch. Feinstein looked like she didn't want to be there and that those kids was bugging her. And if we're being honest, those kids probably were bugging her. But let's be very clear on why. Like, this is somewhat funny to some degree, but let's be very clear on the reality of events. There is a real world out there. Diane Feinstein, you know, as opposed to doing this. I screwed this up. Well, I was supposed to start this video, that Diane Feinstein was addicted to kids, and then show that baby being punched. That's alright. I messed it up. When I start the video, sometimes it's hard to keep all this stuff in my head. Yeah, I'm gonna end this though. If you guys enjoy the content, Gardner, remember when Feinstein almost got mobbed by a crowd after mocking them? Really? Did she? That's funny. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. All right, I'm gonna end this. Yeah, the baby punching thing is funny. God, that's funny. The what is it called? The candidate? Is it the candidate? I think so, something like that. But the Will Ferrell one, where that's the video where Will Ferrell, he got his kid to say that he said, "I'll be your dad. Would you like me to be your dad?" And he says, "Would you be my dad?" And he says, "Sure." He's just paid for by so forth. He got it on TV. And Will Ferrell is looking at this, and he's like, he gets him to call him daddy. He says, "What you gonna do?" He says, "I fuck his wife." He says, "Is that the rule?" "Yes. If you get my son to call you daddy, I fuck your wife." And he goes and has sex with the man's wife and puts it on TV as a campaign ad. Oh, that video, that movie was so funny. God, that movie was funny. That movie was so fucking funny. All right, I'll end this here. Mark Stecker, can you please name one time our government did anything for the ultimate goal of helping the citizens or for more reasons? Social Security. I mean, Social Security, what, cut poverty by, like, I want to say like 30-40% in the elderly. But it's been a long time. I'll say it that way. All right, let me end this. This one has gone way, way, way too long. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. I'll see you guys in a few, in probably like 10-15 minutes. Thanks all. And